Okay, good morning, Gideon. We are on Kuf Yud Beis Amud Aleph, 112a, and the Gemara went on another digression about advice for life. This all started because the Mishnah told us that even one who, God forbid, is collecting funds from the charity fund of the community, nonetheless, he's obligated to acquire 4 cups of wine for the Seder night, notwithstanding the fact that it's going to be financially very difficult, even though he's collecting money to pay for that wine. And the Gemara said that this is in contrast to Rabbi Akiva. Well, I shouldn't say in contrast. The reason why the Mishnah highlights that even someone who is so poor, God forbid, is still required to drink 4 cups of wine is so that you don't think that you have an exemption like Rabbi Akiva gives an exemption for Shabbos. When it comes to Shabbos, Rabbi Akiva says, Asay Shabbat chachol, make your Shabbos meals as plain as your weekday meals, rather than having to collect. So one might make the mistake of thinking, well, hey, if on Shabbos I'm supposed to have a regular meal rather than collect, so maybe Pesach also I'll have a regular amount of wine rather than go collect to pay for 4 cups. Therefore, the Mishnah says, no, even Rabbi Akiva will agree that when it comes to the 4 cups of wine, one should go and ask for a handout so that it can pay for the 4 cups of wine. Even though Rabbi Akiva says, don't do that for Shabbos. Don't have a handout. Don't take a handout. And the Gemara explained the reason why the Seder night is different because of Persumei Nisa, because of the publicizing of the miracle, right? We're thanking Hashem for a miracle of the Exodus, and therefore one should go collect funds and get 4 cups of wine, even though it's going to mean he doesn't have to collect funds. The Gemara added also that when it comes to Shabbos, even though Rabbi Akiva says not to collect funds, but rather make your Shabbos a plain meal, nonetheless, something small you have to do. Something small. The Gemara said fried fish. From here, the Gemara went on a little bit of a digression, inciting to the source from where Rabbi Akiva made the statement that a person should make their Shabbos plain rather than collect funds. And that was part of 7 pieces of advice that Rabbi Akiva gave his son. It was one of the pieces of advice Rabbi Akiva gave to his son, Rabbi Shua. Yeah? This is familiar to everybody so far? Okay. I'm 1 second. Everything here? Wait laughter. Wait laughter. It's not respectful. I'm sorry. Wait the time for long. It doesn't matter. Okay, so I muted everybody, but you can unmute yourself when you want to say something. Okay, so here we are. You can see my pointer. I'm over here. Rabbi Akiva, start here. Chamisha Dvarim. So on that subject, the Gemara now cites the other pieces of advice that Rabbi Akiva gave to not his son this time. Last time it was Rabbi Akiva to his son Rabbi Shua. Now it's Rabbi Akiva to his student. Chamisha Dvarim, Sivi Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. Rabbi Akiva told his student Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai 5 things when Rabbi Akiva was held in prison.
Can you say where we are on the page?
Here, you see my pointer?
It's too small for me to see.
Okay, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines from the bottom of the page. Kuf Yud Beis Aleph, 112a, Chamisha Dvarim.
The line starts with Chamisha Dvarim?
The line starts with Dami, and the second word is Chamisha Dvarim.
Okay.
Chamisha Dvarim, Siva Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. K'shayachavosh bebei so asurin. There were 5 things that Rabbi Akiva instructed his student Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai while Rabbi Akiva was sitting in jail. Right? So the Gemara tells us a story elsewhere. That Rabbi Akiva, there was a time, this is during the time of Roman occupation of Eretz Yisrael, after the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, and the Romans are occupying Israel. And during this time of occupation, there was a lot of Jewish persecution. And at some point, the Romans forbade the study of Torah. Right? This is, of course, what led to the famous Bar Kokhba rebellion, which Rabbi Akiva was a supporter of the Bar Kokhba's rebellion against Rome in an attempt to actually, for one point, they actually did reclaim Jerusalem for a certain period. I think they held it for 2 years. But in an effort to reclaim the sovereignty over Eretz Yisrael, there was a rebellion led by Bar Kokhba, and Rabbi Akiva was a supporter of that. Now, during this period when the Romans forbade the study of Torah, Rabbi Akiva continued to teach. Now, when he was teaching, there was a certain fellow who came to him and said, Rabbi Akiva, don't you know that this is dangerous to your life? The fact that you're teaching Torah when the Romans forbid it? So this is where Rabbi Akiva told him the famous analogy that a Jew and Torah is like fish and water. You know, the fox is clever and gives the fish advice in telling the fish, I'll save you from the sharks, just come on dry land. And of course, that's not a wise advice, it's foolish advice because the fish will die out of the water. So it is, Rabbi Akiva, with a Jew and Torah. Wait till Tati's finished, okay? So Rabbi Akiva says the same thing is true of a Jew and Torah. That you're trying to save my life by telling me not to study Torah, that's like trying to save a fish's life by taking him out of water. And Rabbi Akiva continued and told this guy, you know, I might end up in prison because of my teaching Torah, but that's the best reason to be in prison. The best reason to be in prison is because I taught Torah. Later, Rabbi Akiva was caught for teaching Torah. He was imprisoned, and this fellow who challenged him was also in prison. And the fellow told Rabbi Akiva, you know, how lucky you are. I'm in jail for theft or some other crime, and you're in jail because you study Torah. How right you are that the best reason to be in prison is for Torah study.
But the Romans were familiar with Torah in order to know what he's saying?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, governments today regulate what you can and can't teach in a classroom, right? Even today, you're in Quebec, they regulate what you can and can't teach. Certainly in more totalitarian states, they are very well aware of what's being educated. In fact, sometimes that's the priority, right? At any rate, the end of the story is that Rabbi Akiva was taken and killed by the Romans. He's one of the 10 martyrs. Okay, so this story now takes place, this conversation now takes place while Rabbi Akiva is in jail. So apparently his students were allowed to visit him. So Rabbi Shimon Yochai comes to visit Rabbi Akiva while he's in jail. And this is the conversation we're reading right now. Amar Loi, Rabbi Shimon Yochai tells Rabbi Akiva, Rebbe, my teacher, Lamdeni Torah, teach me Torah. Amar. So Rabbi Akiva said, Eini malamdecha. I am not going to teach you Torah. This is too risky. I'm sitting in jail here because of Torah study. Now I'm going to teach you Torah in jail. Amar Loi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said to him, Im ein atem alamdeni, if you don't teach me, ani omer lo Yochai, Abba, I'm going to go tell my father Yochai, umaysarcha lamalchus, and he's going to go and rat you out to the government. In other words, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is telling him, you're anyways in jail. What are you afraid of? You're afraid of being ratted out to the government? You're already ratted out. Like he's like giving him a sarcastic threat. If you don't teach me, I'm going to go tell my father who's going to go rat on you to the government. You're already caught. What are you worried about? So Amar Loi, Rabbi Akiva said to Rabbi Shimon, B'ni, my child, more than the calf wants to drink milk, the cow wants to give milk. It's an expression used in the Gemara to describe that a teacher has more desire to teach than the student has to learn, at least in many cases. Now, Rabbi Akiva is saying, I trust me, I wish I can teach you. More than you want to drink Torah from me, I want to give you. More than the calf wants to drink milk from the mother wants to give milk to the calf. It's quite literally. If a calf doesn't milk, if a cow doesn't give milk, it can get engorged and it hurts. So the cow literally wants to have the child take the milk. And the same thing is true of a teacher of Torah. All the Torah that he has in him is bubbling over, and he really wants to give it. So Rabbi Akiva tells Rabbi Shimon, I wish I can teach you. More than you want to learn, I want to teach. Amar Loi, Rabbi Shimon said back to Rabbi Akiva, but this case is a little bit different. HK, wait till he's finished, okay? Want to sit my lap and watch? Okay, come sit here. Amar Loi, Rabbi Shimon told Rabbi Akiva, Umi basakana. This case is different because who is in danger here? in the case of the mother, the cow, and the calf, the cow is in danger if she doesn't get milk. She doesn't feed her child. But in this case, who's truly in danger? The calf is in danger, meaning to say, I am in danger. You are already in jail. You're not in danger if you teach. I'm in danger now because I'm a free man. And if I get caught, I'm going to be sent to jail. So actually, the risk is more on me than it is on you. So this is what Rabbi Shimon. This is what Rabbi Shimon tells Rabbi Akiva, trying to convincing him to teach him Torah. So Amar lo, Rabbi Akiva acquiesces and says, "Okay, I'm going to teach you." So he gives him 5. He gives him wait till after the Heshker. He gives him 5 pieces of advice. Number 1, Amar lo, in bikashta lichanik. Literally, I'll translate. Literally, I'll explain what he means. Literally means if you'd like to get hung, hitale be'ilon gadol, hang on a tall tree. So he's giving him like a metaphor, considering that they're talking about their lives, and it's kind of like black humor. Their lives are in danger right now. Rabbi Akiva is going to get killed by the Romans soon. Rabbi Shimon is risking his life, and he eventually also ends up having to run away from the Romans, right? The famous story where he's in the cave. So he's using like black humor to send a message. What he wanted to teach Rabbi Akiva, as Rashbam explains it, what Rabbi Akiva wanted to teach Rabbi Shimon, as Rashbam explains it, is that when you're teaching something, you have to cite to the source from which you got that piece of information. So the way he says it is, if you want to hang yourself, meaning to say you want to make a statement, hang yourself on a tall tree. Make sure that you're citing to a great one before you, a tall tree. This is advice number 1 Rabbi Akiva gives to Rabbi Shimon. Yeah? You want to share something, make sure you say it in the name of the one you learned from, that person being the tall tree, you hanging yourself on the tall tree, right? Like the expression goes, you hang your hat on something. What are you hanging your hat on? Okay. Teaching number 2. When you teach your son Torah, lamdeu, teach him the Sefer Muga in a perfectly, a book that's been really scrutinized to make sure the text is accurate. Specifically when you're teaching a child. Why is that? Explains Rashbam. When you teach a child, or when someone begins learning, the first time they encounter the learning or the text, that's what sticks in their minds. Right? What sticks in their minds is after. What sticks in their mind is what they learned the first time. So you have to make sure to get it right the first time. When they're already a seasoned student and you make a mistake, okay, so you make a mistake, they'll figure out that there's a mistake or you can correct it. But when they're learning for the first time, if they get it wrong, that gets stuck in their heads and it becomes a problem. So therefore, make sure that your text you're using when you start teaching a child is absolutely perfect. This is true, especially when it comes to davening. When you learn how to daven or you learn how to read, and if you mispronounce it the first time, like when you first learn, then almost like forever, it's very difficult to like unlearn that mistake, the mistaken pronunciation. And therefore, the first time you're learning, make sure you get it right. That's advice number 2. As he explains here, Mahi, what does he mean by a edited book? Amarav explains, others say it's a Masharshia, B'chadata. A new book, a book that's been like, B'chadata, the new student. Shabash, Akiva, all. That once if there's a mistake, this is what he's explaining what I just said. If there's a mistake, once the mistake enters the child's mind, it's in there, it's very difficult to get it out. Therefore, make sure you have when you're teaching a new student, make sure that the book is absolutely perfect in its right. That was advice number 3. Advice number 4. Lo sevashol the kedera shabishol b'chavercha. Don't cook in a pot that your friend already cooked in. What does this mean? What's the meaning of this? It says the Gemara, Grusha, B'chaye Baila. This is marrying a divorcee while the husband is still alive. You'll see in a second that this is not an absolute prohibition. It's only in certain circumstances for a certain reason.
Wow.
Why? Because it's been said, Gorosh Shenosa Grusha, a divorced person who marries a divorced woman, Arba Deis Bemita. Literally, there are 4 opinions in the bedroom, meaning to say each one is still thinking about the other one. That's why I said it's not an absolute prohibition so much as to take into consideration if there are still any feelings to the previous spouse. Because if there are, you're basically inviting the previous spouse into your marriage. So the way he says it is, don't cook in a pot that your friend cooked in. Meaning to say, you want to be able to marry someone who is fully devoted to you. And if they still have feelings for the previous relationship, then you're running into an issue. And therefore the Gemara says, Iboy Sema, you could even say, Afilu Almana, even a widow, right? If she still has feelings for the previous husband. Lafi, because top of Kufyud Beis, Amud Beis, top of 112b, Kafi she'ein kol etzbois shavois. Literally, not all fingers are the same. Meaning to say, each husband pleases their wife differently. And if she's still attached to the previous husband, and that's the expectation she has, then the man enters the marriage with a certain expectation he has to live up to, and that can become very difficult and cause, God forbid, that can cause, God forbid, resentment. That was advice number 4, was it, right? 4. Number 5, final piece of advice. Mitzvah v'guf, gadol, oichel peres v'lo yisachar. Mitzvah v'guf tahar, noise isha v'lo banim. Okay, what does this mean? Literally, a mitzvah and a mitzvah and increase of the investment, you eat the fruits and not the reward. What does that mean? Mitzvah and a pure body, marrying a woman and she has children. So what's going on here? It explains. Rashbam explains. If you want to do a mitzvah as well as gain profit, right? That your investment should grow, then eat fruit and not reward. What does that mean? It means lend your friend. This is how Rashbam explains it. Lend your friend. I'm reading from here. You can see my finger here. Lend your friend money against property, and you eat the produce. Meaning to say, let's say you lend your friend some money, and you take as collateral a piece of property, and you, let's say, collect the rent on that property up until such time that you get paid back. Right, so it's a guarantee you're going to get it paid back. Right, so you lend the guy cash. He has a property. Let's say you hold on to the property. You collect the rent until the money that you have lent him is paid back. So here you have good results, right? You have good results. It's a good investment, as well as a mitzvah. Could you lend him money so he can do some other business? So you have mitzvah and a big body that you can say you have a good investment along with the mitzvah. Okay, and the other statement was mitzvah v'guf tahor, a mitzvah and a pure body, noitze isha v'lo banim, marrying a woman and having children. So that is to say, a person gets a mitzvah because, where is it? Where was it? Here. A person, it's a mitzvah because he marries a woman, and it's a pure body because now he can, considering he's married, he doesn't have distraction. He has a woman he can be with, and looping back to our Gemara from our Tartanya class this morning, considering that he has a kosher outlet for his urges, so his body stays pure because he married a woman and he has the mitzvah as well. So mitzvah for guf tahor, it's a mitzvah as well as good for your own self that you have this kosher outlet for intimacy. Okay, so this is the Gemara's telling us Rabbi Akiva's advice to his student Rabbi Shimon while he was in jail.
In today's language, these are such strange analogies.
Yeah, I suppose so. But I would argue the reason why he's doing these analogies is because we only gave one layer of interpretation. But I'm sure if you open up more commentaries, the language itself lends to more layers of interpretation, which is why perhaps Rabbi Akiva would do that, allowing Rabbi Shimon to keep on unpacking the message with deeper and deeper layers of meaning. Although we just followed Rashbam's interpretation, which is the most basic meaning. Okay, God willing, on Monday we'll continue with more pieces of advice from sages to their children and to their students. More coming, God willing. A
Wow,
wonderful
thank
day
you.
and a good Erev Shabbos.
Good Erev Shabbos.
Shkoyach.
Okay, good to see everyone.